Jenny couldn't believe she was letting him do this for her. Watching Julian wash the dishes so efficiently, she giggled and said, "So, Julian knows how to wash dishes too." Without glancing at her, Julian replied, "Well, there's a lot I can do. Too bad you never gave me the chance to show off my talents." Catching the underlying meaning in his words, Jenny blushed. Seeing the shy expression on her face, Julian felt a sense of satisfaction. He decided to stop teasing her and focus on the task at hand. After finishing with the dishes, Julian accepted the small towel Jenny handed him and said, "Next time, I don't want to see you doing this kind of work in the kitchen. We have staff for that. If they're busy, come find me. All right?" All Jenny could do was watch him walk away, speechless. When Jenny stepped into the dining room, everyone was already seated at the table. Melissa smiled warmly and said, "Come, we've been waiting for you." Daniel waved her over, grinning. "Sis-in-law, come sit next to my brother. He saved a spot for you." Jenny nodded and took the seat next to Julian. Once everyone was settled, ROMI said, "Now that we're all here, let's eat." Everyone began serving food onto their plates. Melissa passed ROMI a dish of sweet and sour pork ribs, saying, "Here, ROMI, have some. I know they're your favorite." Across the table, Adrian nearly choked on his food and muttered, "Excuse me." Daniel, quick to react, handed his father a napkin and whispered, "Looks like you've got competition in the love department, Dad. You'd better step up your game. I'm not ready for a stepfather." Adrian squinted his eyes at his son. "Quiet." Daniel stifled a laugh and continued eating, amused by the situation. Meanwhile, Julian kept piling food onto Jenny's plate. When she tried to stop him, he simply said, "You need to eat more. You're way too thin." Jenny pouted, "But this is too much. I'll get fat." Julian patted her head affectionately and replied, "Even if you gain 100 pounds, I wouldn't mind." Jenny raised an eyebrow and teased, "What if people start saying your wife is fat?" "I don't care. What if I can't fit into any of my dresses anymore?" "I don't care. What if people start judging your taste in women?" "I don't care." "What if?" Jenny started, but Julian cut her off, his tone gentle but firm. "I don't care what people say. But if they think marrying you was a mistake, then I'm proud to have made the best mistake of my life." Jenny gazed at Julian. She couldn't tell if he was being serious or playful, but there was a sincerity in his words that tugged at her heart. Seeing Jenny lost in thought, Julian gently said, "Don't overthink it and just eat." After the meal, Mother Melissa and Grandma Sarah went to the kitchen to fetch dessert. ROMI turned to Jenny and said, "Your sister is coming back tomorrow. I asked her to continue her studies in the Netherlands, but she insists on coming back to help with the family business. I don't know what to do. You should talk to her." Jenny nodded and replied, "I know she's coming tomorrow, and we'll pick her up at the airport. If she wants to come back and help you, it's not a bad idea. You're getting older, and you can't handle everything on your own." Mr. ROMI nodded in agreement. Julian leaned closer to Jenny and asked, "Who are you going with?" "I was thinking of going with you, but if you're busy, I understand." "I'm sorry for not asking you before deciding," Jenny answered. Julian chuckled and said, "I'll go with you. And you don't need to ask me before making any decisions, especially about me. Just remember, whatever my wife says goes." Daniel, sitting next to them, overheard and burst into laughter. "Oh my God. My brother has become a wife's servant, just like Dad and Grandpa." ROMI and Grandpa Herman both blushed and said in unison, "We are not wife's servants." Grandma Sarah and Mother Melissa placed their hands on their husbands' shoulders and teasingly asked, "What did you say, darling?" After the meal, everyone gathered in the living room for a chat. Adrian's father and Mother Melissa were the first to leave since Adrian had some important work to attend to. Grandma Sarah and Grandpa Herman left shortly after, followed by Daniel. Julian and Jenny decided to stay a little longer. Julian stepped outside to take a phone call. ROMI gently took his daughter's hand and asked, "Is he treating you well?" Jenny smiled and nodded. "Yes, he treats me very well." She wasn't lying. Julian had indeed been good to her. ROMI smiled warmly and said, "As long as you're happy, that's all I care about. But if you ever feel unhappy, remember, your father's home is always open to you." Jenny embraced her father, and tears began to well up in her eyes. Meanwhile, outside, Julian answered his phone with a cold tone, "Speak." The man on the other end shuddered at the sound of his voice. "Boss, they've entered Surabaya. Despite the warnings we gave them, they're still looking for you and your family." Julian grinned and said, "I thought they had forgotten who they were dealing with. We've been silent for too long, and I think it's time we remind them who they're up against." After a brief pause, he added, "Sicko, activate the quartz team. Increase security around Grandpa Herman's house and Mr. Andrian's home. Assign top-tier guards to protect every member of the Bhaskara family." Sicko responded confidently, "Yes, sir. You don't need to worry about that." Just as Sicko was about to hang up, Julian added, "And make sure my wife has 4 of the best bodyguards, 2 men and 2 women." Sicko was momentarily taken aback but quickly snapped to attention after Julian's stern, "Understood?" "Yes, sir," Sicko replied immediately. After ending the call, Julian walked back inside and saw Jenny hugging her father, tears streaming down her cheeks. Raising an eyebrow in concern, he approached them with determined steps. "Why is my wife crying?" he asked seriously. Jenny, having just pulled away from her father and wiping her tears, calmly responded, "It's nothing, really. There's nothing to worry about." Julian gently handed her a tissue and said, "This will be the last time I see you cry. From now on, I never want to see tears in your eyes again." Her father smiled, satisfied with how much Julian cared for his daughter. "You're much better than Raka," he thought to himself. They chatted for a bit longer before Julian and Jenny prepared to leave. Before they left, ROMI reminded Jenny, "Don't forget to pick up your sister tomorrow." Julian, answering for her, said, "Don't worry, father. I'll make sure she doesn't forget." Jenny couldn't help but smile as she gave her father a warm hug before they headed out. In the car, Julian leaned in close to Jenny, his lips brushing softly against her cheek, making her hold her breath. The gentle warmth of his touch made her face flush. Julian noticed her reaction and smiled before pulling back and starting the engine. "You should always wear your seatbelt when you're in the car," Julian said while tightening his own seatbelt. Slightly startled, Jenny lowered her head and tried to calm herself. The drive continued in silence, the atmosphere growing quiet. To break the silence, Julian asked, "What time is your sister's flight arriving?" Jenny turned to him and replied, "I need to check. Can I borrow your phone? I think I lost mine yesterday." Julian handed her his phone. After checking, Jenny answered, 10 a.m., Julian nodded. "All right, after we pick her up, we'll head to my office." Jenny looked at him, puzzled. "Your office? Why do I need to go to your office?" Julian raised an eyebrow and explained, "You're my wife, which technically makes you the boss of all my employees. People need to know that you're Mrs. Bhaskara now." Thank you all. Have a nice day. Don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe, so that the admin is more enthusiastic to provide entertainment for all of you. See you in the next video.